Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today we are going to be doing a Legion list build, and this might be maybe one of the best builds I've ever done. At least as far as trying to take on the competitive meta. I have an idea, and it's a suppression-based build, and that's going to use some of the new stuff that's out there too with the new IG, and we're going to see how it works. I want to hear what you guys think, and let me know. I'm going to be using Tabletop Admiral today. I'll put a link to the build. Also, we are giving away a lightsaber that's going all the way through the end of the year, so all you have to do to enter to win that is be a subscriber, leave a comment. A lot of you guys are watching that are not subscribed already. Subscriptions are free, by the way, so click that button. It doesn't hurt you. It definitely helps me out, and it enters you to win. Also, I want to thank today's sponsor, Luxury Playstyle. Amazing full metal tokens compatible with Legion. You're going to love these. Order extra suppression tokens if your opponents are running this list, because we're going to be putting a lot of suppression out there in this build today. We're going to be running Empire. And so they're gorgeous tokens, though. Seriously, you're going to love them. Save 15% by using code Crabbok VIP. All right, so let's talk about this build because this is an interesting one. It's going to run some stuff I haven't run in a long time. It's going to use Krennic. It's going to use a lot of range 4 attacks. Since, look, I mean, I got my butt kicked at a recent tournament pretty bad, and I've been getting my butt kicked at all the tournaments that I've been going to lately. And that's for two different reasons. For one, a lot of the terrain is kind of wide open. There's some heavy cover along the way, but there's not nearly as much line of sight blocking terrain as I usually use in my builds. So I go to different stores and different places, and I see, you know, like some line of sight blocking terrain like on the outskirts, but like really nothing in the middle. And so like snipers and long range characters have like pretty much, you know, their choice of targets almost anywhere. And so I decided, you know what, instead of, I always make these short range lists, right? The last tournament, it was all range 2 characters, and it was all the Black Sun. And then before that, it was all the Jedi, right? Like, it was running Dooku and Maul and Grievous and all these melee characters. And those just doesn't work when everybody's running, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are running range 4 plus gun lines, pikes, all kinds of stuff like that. You can't get close enough, and of course they're pretty hard to kill. So I decided, let me start doing some of my own range 4 stuff, and let's try to deal, in case we come up with like really hard to kill characters like Mandalorians or Pikes. Let's take suppression as our weapon here. So I'm going to start off with Orson Krennic as my commander. You may know why. If you're not familiar with Krennic, he is not a bad commander. He's got a decent little weapon on him, although he is short range with the weapon. He's going to be about the only really short range unit in this whole build. He does give you Entourage for a Death Trooper. He also has Cunning, which is going to let his command cards break ties. Cunning is a really cool ability. And he has Compel, which is going to help you deal with your own type of suppression. In case you have somebody that's going to lose an action, he can be like, no, you still get to move. Go ahead. He also has Surge to Crit and Pierce 1, so it gives me a little bit of, you know, anti-vehicle. I'm not going to have a whole lot of impact in this list, so vehicles could be a little bit of a weakness. So we're going to have a lot of, you know, surging to crit in this build to kind of make up for the lack of impact, because our focus here isn't going to be for vehicles, it's going to be suppression. Krennic is notorious for, or at least in my mind, for putting out suppression. He can do that in one of two ways. He can do that with Death Troopers that come with him. They have a suppressive weapon, but he also has that command card, that 3-pip Annihilation Looms, which puts suppression on everybody, and is one of my favorite command cards in the game, although you'll have to be careful about when you play it. For Krennic, I am going to give him Underworld Connections. That one is going to give me Allies and Convenience, because I'm going to want to run 2 bounty hunters. This is going to be a double bounty list, which means we're looking at 2 different ways to try to win. You know, we want suppression to do our thing and to kind of hopefully cause my opponent's units to either not be able to get the objective or to make them run away. Or if that doesn't work, we can just turn around and, you know, kill a commander or 2 and get some victory points that way. So, and it's fun, right? So that's kind of what we're going with. I also want to go with Inspiring and Presence here. Now, this is kind of a toss-up because I really I wavered back and forth on this one a little bit because I really wanted to go with Improvised Orders as well because I have quite a few different unit types, but I feel like I could still be okay without Improvised Orders. I feel like this one is probably Inspiring Presence is going to work a little bit more better for me, especially when it comes to the battlefield cards, because I'm going to probably want to put War Weary in here, and this is a really good one for that. So I'm putting Inspiring Presence in here. It's not going to be super crucial, but Krennic's going to probably want to stay hidden, whereas some other folks may want to move and get some better vantage points. So let's start with my bounty hunters. I'm going to run Bosk. Bosk is going into this build because he has a range 4 weapon. Range 4 is going to be a thing for this build. I want suppression and I want range 4. Range 4 attacks are a great way to put suppression out there, especially when their weapon has a suppressive built in. Bosk is just a really good shooter. He's got 5 dice. He can get aims pretty easily, and he has Pierce 1 on his weapon. And his range 2 to 4 suppressive. He's just super fun. I'm going to give him Hunter. There's a reason for that. Even though he can normally get a lot of aims, this build is going to use him slightly differently. I'm also going to put IG-11 in this build. I really like IG-11 now. IG-11 does have a range 4 weapon. He has Surge to hit, so he doesn't have that Surge to crit. We are going to have a lot of Surge to crit. We're going to be trying to get a lot of that in this build. However, we're not going to have all of it. But IG-11 has he's got a Gunslinger and a range 4 attack. So to me, that's even better than a suppressive weapon because I'm still able to put out 2 suppression with him. He's going to be a little harder to kill than Bosk with the armor 1 and the red defense dice, and maybe a little harder to kill. We'll have to see. It can go a lot of different ways. That's the hope, at least. Since I do have to give him a programming protocol, since he's on the Empire, I can only give him bounty programming, which is going to give him AI, aim, and attack. And then, of course, I can either gain Pierce 1 or Suppressive. Oh my goodness, I really like this is one of those times where you really hope, really hope your opponent brings an operative. Because if they bring an operative, now I am gonna have Suppressive and Gunslinger on this range 4 weapon, and it's just the most beautiful thing, right? It's so beautiful, and so you really hope. You really hope. If not, you think you got a range 4 Pierce, which is still pretty good. But man, for this build, I hope I face an operative. I really do. All right, so IG-11 is going to get the bounty programming. Really cool. Really cool. Because it's just whoever you choose as the target of your bounty, right? So he's going to have that. Even if he's not shooting them, right? Oh my gosh, it's cool and it's exciting and it's new, and I haven't even used them yet, but I think it's going to be fun. All right. Now on to the actual rest of the build. And of course, I needed Underworld Connections to be able to have 2 mercs in this build. I've got 2 operative mercs. I got IG-11 and Bosk, and that's the reason for Underworld Connections. All right. So for core, I do have to have a couple of core. I am going to go with Shore Troopers, and I'm going to give them... Now, Shore Troopers are range 1 to 3, but I'm going to give them the T21B, which is a range to 4 with critical 1 on it. Now, they don't have any Surge to crit, but at least they're going to have critical 1 now. I'm going to put 2 of those in. It gives me a range 4 weapon. It's actually a pretty good range 4 weapon. It's a little on the expensive side, but you're getting a lot for it. It also allows me to split fire if I have targets at range 3, which is also nice. Again, putting out even more suppression that way by making 2 separate shots. Splitting fire is always a good thing. I have 2 of those. I'm going to add 2 of the DF-90 mortars. This is a range 4 weapon that is 3 white, critical 1, and suppressive. It is also cumbersome, so you can't move and shoot, but usually you can deploy this because they're a detachment. You can usually deploy them a little bit farther forward if you need to, or you have a little more flexibility on where you deploy them. They make for a great unit. Of course, a lot of times I will use these for fire support, but in this build, I don't think I'm going to use them for fire support. I think I want these guys to actually attack. But at least I have the option to use them for fire support, especially when it applies to going for a bounty, right? Especially like I got IG-11 here. Oh, you got Surge to hit, great. But how about if we added 3 more white dice and critical 1, and and all that cool stuff, right? So a lot of cool things that we can do with that. Also, going back to this, If we choose a commander, my weapons gain Pierce 1. My range 3 already has Pierce 1. That gives it Pierce 2, which is super cool. Now, granted, at that point, you're going to have a black and 2 white with Pierce 2. You might not get 2 hits through, because if they have heavy cover, even though you got Sharpshooter 1, that might get rid of 1, you know. So I just really hope they have an operative. I really hope they have an operative. All right, so we've got 2 Shore Troopers. Now, a lot of times I'll run the Shore Troopers with a comm guy and put HQ uplink on there so these guys can give themselves an order, get the free aim token, and then trigger the TF-90 mortars so they can do fire support and independent of anything else that's going on. Not doing that this time because another thing that is important, I think, with the meta is I can't really run these 7 activation, 8 activation lists and then have a good unit kind of left over at the end to go. So I really need to kind of make sure I'm using as many activations as I can, and running the mortars more typically will allow me to do that. So that's the setup for this one. Now, talking about long range, that is something I definitely want. I am going to run triple snipers on this one. So I'm going to put the Scout Trooper strike team on there, and I'm going to put the DLT-19 snipers. That's a range 5 weapon. High velocity makes them pretty effective against people with dodge tokens like Jedi or people like Pikes. Although, granted, you're only rolling 2 black dice with no surge to hit. But you do have a Pierce 1 in there, and you do have 2 black dice, so it's a chance. Usually aim and shoot is what you want to do with these guys if you can. A lot of times, since they do have low profile, a lot of times I'll give them duck and cover as well, but I can't afford it in this case. I'm going to make it triple strike team. I have never run a triple sniper build before because I only own 2 snipers. I never wanted to be that meta player. I never wanted to be that guy who was trying to net list and you know, just copy somebody else's build. And but here I am asking you to copy mine, right? Well, not necessarily. I'm sharing an idea with you. So you know, if this is something, you know, I might test this out. But if this is something I like, I'll have to pick up an extra Scout Troopers expansion. But yeah, it's weird because, you know, I feel like I'm being forced into having to run this because too many people are running long range stuff, and I just want to get in there and brawl. Like, I want like a melee only build versus another melee only build, and we get in there and just do it. I think that's kind of more like Marvel Crisis Protocol, though. All right, or the heroes versus villains format that I keep talking about, which is just 800 points of unique characters on a 3x3 board. You know, like, we need to do more of that. So that's my 3 special forces. But if you remember, at the top, we have Entourage Death Trooper. So we get to add an extra Death Trooper and have a 4th Special Forces unit in this one. So we're going to add a Death Trooper unit. They're always going to get an order as long as they're close enough to Krennic. And then I can go past. And that's also going to bring me up to 11 activations, which is pretty good. We're going to put a few things, or not much, right? We're not going to put much on here. We're going to put DLT-19. That's a range 4 attack. Really nice. We do have, I lied before when I said we had no impact. We do actually have impact 1. It's a little something. It's a little something that's nice. They have precise. They have ready 1, which is just really nice. They have disciplined 1, and they have search to hit, search for defense. Overall, they're pretty good. We're going to give them their free armament. I love that this is free now. It used to be so expensive. And but what's beautiful about this armament is that it is a suppressive. So we'll be putting this in the focused fire config. It will exhaust, though, so we'll have to think about doing recover actions with these guys from time to time, because the focused fire config is really cool. Now, one of the cool things that we can do with this, too, is we have a lot of different weapons. We have, you know, if I've had situations before where I have 5 Death Troopers. I got the heavy plus the 4. And then we've got 1 weapon here, 1 weapon here, 1 weapon here. That's 3. 1 weapon on the DLT, and then a grenade. Right? And so I've been able to like split fire 5 different ways. And I don't know if I actually did that, but I certainly thought about it because, like, you know, I really could do this. And that is a way to put out a lot of suppression. But if you're running them kind of gun line focused, you're going to have a shot probably where you maybe aim and shoot, or maybe move and shoot, and you pop the focused fire config, have a couple of them shoot at range 4 with the black die, but also have your DLT maybe go for a separate target, and then you're putting out 3 suppression with one attack, which is always a nice thing. Now, this is 800 points. We could always drop some things if we needed to. There's plenty of Well, maybe not plenty, but there's room to drop stuff. Bosk could lose Hunter. If we needed to get some points off, we could drop Inspiring Presence off of Krennic if we needed to get some points off, or we could drop a Bounty Hunter, or even we could drop a Mortar if we needed to. We could drop a Sniper, something like that. There's a lot of little places where we could make some change. There are other suppressive weapons that exist, and there's other things that could work. I had another version of this going around in my head that was going to have an ATST in the build. Before I got my hands on IG-11, I was thinking of running this with an ATST. And so, there's definitely options. Or I had another version of this that ran 2 Death Trooper units. That's another way that you could potentially run something like this. There are definitely a lot of options. But the idea here is lots of long-range shooting, pretty good activation count, lots of suppressive weaponry. That's so I want to be able to force people to panic. If you run into a commander that you can't kill, if I'm running into Jin Pathfinders that are just say, I want all the suppression, I'll give them too much and more than they can handle. If you're running into pikes that are stacking 4 dodge tokens on each unit or something like that, you're like, that's fine, dodge all of these, I don't care, because you're going to end up with 8 suppression by the end of this round on maybe 2 different units, and good luck, and they're not going to be able to reference a big commander's courage value. They'll probably only be able to reference value 2, so all it's going to take is 4 suppression to make a pike panic. And so I think this list is more than capable of making 1 or more pikes panic every round. And so I think that would be really fun, even if I didn't win the match. I think doing that would be really fun on its own, but I think we've got enough other ways to win, especially with the double bounty option. So as far as command cards, this is where it gets kind of interesting because we have so many different options here. We've got lots of generics now. We've got IG, we've got Bosk, we've got Krennic. First thing I want to point out is I'm not using Lying in Wait. This is one of the best command cards in the game. It allows Bosk to virtually guarantee 5 criticals on whoever he's shooting, and that is pretty impressive. Because you save him, basically you save Bosk for last, and he has something like 8+ aim tokens, and then he just gets to move and just shoot and just keep re-rolling until he gets a surge or a crit on every die, because he has surge to crit built in. It's a great card, and I'm not using it. And the reason for that is part of the drawback of running IG-11 is I have to run anti-capture protocols. I have to run this in my hand. It's a must. And so that's got to go in automatically. I don't even get a choice because I'm running IG-11. I have to run that. So then it comes down to Lying in Wait or Annihilation Looms. And I have to run Annihilation Looms because the entire build is based on this one. So this one has to win. Plus, I am running Krennic, who has Cunning, and so this 3-pip now becomes as effective as a 2-pip if I go up against another 3-pip. There's always the chance I could go up against another Krennic, which isn't likely. What's more likely is maybe I go up against a Shadow Collective Maul who's running the Darksaber. Then all of a sudden it's Cunning versus Cunning, but I'll still be grateful that that they can kind of nullify each other. But this card is great it gives everybody a suppression. It's great for turns 1 through 4 just to deny most troopers their double action. But if you pop it on turn 5 or 6, it's going to give everybody an additional suppression token. And that is often, the plan here is to scare you at the end of the game and make somebody panic when they thought they were safe, if they're even kind of completely behind a wall or something like that, somebody who's maybe too far away from their commander. And so, or if nothing else, maybe it also makes them drop an objective that they were carrying, if you're using something like Recover the Supplies. And so this can totally facilitate that, and it can do that. Now, it is going to hit your troops as well, but that's not such a bad thing because Krennic does have Compel, so you are less likely to, screw yourself over and more likely to screw over your opponent, because at least you are prepared for this, and you also choose when you play this card. However, if you are playing against Rebels, there's a couple of things you want to think about with this card. If you're playing against certain commanders, they can effectively nullify this card. One of those, for example, is Jyn Erso. She has a 3-pip complete the mission. It lets people ignore suppression. right? Maul also has, if you're playing Shadow Collective Maul, he also has a card that lets people ignore, like they skip their rally step, right? And so, like, those are things you need to think about. Han Solo is another option you need to think about if you're going up against Han Solo. He has his 3-pip, the change of plans. He can be like, oh, is it turn 6? This was your trump card. You were planning on making me panic? No, actually, he can play change of plans and be like, no, actually, you don't get to play that card. In fact, you can play something else. And if you're running Han and Chewie, he can potentially run that one twice in a row if he decides he can kick you out. So Han Solo, especially if he's got Chewbacca, can really shut this card down. And so if you're playing against Rebels or maybe a Shadow Collective Maul, you need to think about the possibility of maybe running this card before turn 5 or 6 to surprise your opponent. And it depends how well your opponent knows the game and how good your opponent is at card play. This might be a surprise, like a turn 4 play, because turn 4 is probably the last turn that somebody would expect you to play Annihilation Looms. And so if you do, you at least catch them by surprise. You would actually have to combo it with them having prior suppressions in the previous round, and that's something, you want to split fire when you can. But it's just such a good card, and the threat of it is a big deal. Plus, it's one of Krennic's cards, and Cunning only works when you're running Krennic's cards. All right. Since I mentioned Krennic's cards, I do also want to run Deploy the Garrison, because it'll effectively be a 1-pip for Krennic. At least unless your opponent plays a 1-pip, it'll beat all the other 2s. So that's good. And then, of course, a free standby action is going to be real nice on Death Troopers. It's good for that, and we can use it for whoever else might need it. I can use it on Bosk or IG if people tend to get close, or a Shore Trooper. Actually, it's actually not bad on the DF-90 mortars as well. And one of the things you can do with Deploy the Garrison is if you can hit a Shore Trooper with it, they can pass the orders over to the mortars. You got 4 orders out at a 2-pip, and then, of course, your mortars can do a free standby. Then they can also have their face up if they need to do the fire support if you need to. You have the flexibility. If you've got a high value target you have to kill, you can do that. But really, at least one of these orders should go on the Death Troopers. This is usually better for a multi-Death Trooper build, because the Death Troopers, especially if you want to give them a lot of times, like I'll give the Death Troopers the where is it? Overwatch. So their standby range would be 3, and that's good. Plus, they get the free aim. But it's still good. I've used this as a turn 1 play before, especially if we happen to be in range, if we're deployed a little close to each other, if we did some scouting, to give my Death Troopers free standbys, which allows them to get a free aim, so they can start off doing a move and shoot with a free aim token, which also lets them reroll 2 extra dice. It's a good card for Death Troopers all around, but it does work for other things in this build as well. Plus, mainly, it's Krennic's 2-pip. So that's good. I'm going to do that one. I'm not going to do this. I don't think... I kind of want IG to be pretty far back. I want him to be sniping most of the game, so I don't think he's going to need those things. Whereas I would much rather Bosk be able to shoot twice. All right? I would really like for Bosk to be able to shoot twice with that suppressive gun, and then put out 4 suppression in 1 turn. So that fits really well into this build. So while I'm not taking Lying in Wait, I am taking Reptilian Rampage, because that's a good one for what I'm trying to do here. Now, onto the 1-pips. We have some options. We have Mechanical Carnage. I don't like this one because I don't want IG to lose Gunslinger. I see the whole every attack at every enemy at range 2. That has the potential to be good, but it's only going to be... It requires 2 separate triggers for it to work with this build. It requires... My opponent has to have an operative to make this really, really good. And then it also is going to require that I have IG at range 2 of a whole lot of enemies, because then I could, in theory, spin around and do suppressive fire on everybody, but that's probably not going to be the case, because I'm going to have him set up in a sniper position. So we're not going to do that. We're going to go with Voracious Ambition, which is a good one for anytime you're running mercs. It gives you a little bit better control over them, or varied stuff. Plus, it's a 1-pip that's kind of a guarantee unless you're going up against Han Solo. Which is really cool. And then we have Merciless Munition. And I like this one, even though it's almost never used, because a lot of time Bosk is set up as a sniper as well. But This one I feel like is a little easier to put out a lot of suppression than this one, because Bosk gets to move and then do this and then kind of go away. It's kind of it's one way or the other. I think I'm going to go with merciless munitions in this one. Again, this one and Mechanical Carnage are similar in some ways. I think the bubble for this one is a little bit bigger, but this one can do so many really cool things, and it also does have the surge to crit in there, which gives you, like, in a pinch, it is. I don't even know if this one can go after vehicles, to be honest, but it's detonate, right? So, but yeah, it's still gonna attack, but it's only the troopers that are gonna get the poison tokens, right? So you got some poison tokens that you can put out with this one, and it's a fun one. I haven't run this one in a long time. I think you could easily justify either one. Maybe it'd be smarter to run this one. Maybe it would be, because you have a bigger bubble, and it also gives you an IG-11 card, because in case you lose Bosk early, which certainly can happen, if you split up your cards a little more if I go with this one. So it's an option. I think you could do either one. As a matter of fact, but no, I want to run merciless munitions. I think it was more fun for me. But yeah, that's the idea. And we're going to do battle plans now. All right, so for battle plans, I want key positions, always a good one. If I can make you, if I can suppress you, you can't get in position. Or if you do get in position, I can have Bosk set off his charge, and that's always a fun one. I'm going to put sabotage the moisture evaporators. That's we're going to be on a tie, and maybe I can do bounty to break the tie. That's going to be perfect. Recover the supplies. Maybe I can make you drop those supplies. That'll be great. And then intercept the transmissions. Again, I'm forcing you to move to a certain point when now I have Dioxis charges and things like that. So I like that. And I guess that's kind of another thing about this too, is I can always play this one. He gets this for the rest of the game, right? So I can always play them early and then back away too. So, like, if I have nothing else and I need to go first or whatever, and I want Bosk to be able to at least mark off an area and then back away, I have that option, and it can be good in certain situations. So I think that's kind of cool. And because I can drop 2 of them, it's a lot of suppression I can put out there. All right. We've got our deployments. So I'm going to go with battle lines. This one is usually pretty conducive to gun lines. It's one of my favorites. It's also easy to play on. What's harder to play on is the long march, but this one works with all the long range attacks I've got. I feel like this one can definitely be, it can work, although it can be harder to play on. So we're going to do the long march. Major offensive is kind of a copy of both of them. It's a little bit of both, pretty bland ones. And I'm going to do a weird one. I think this is maybe one of the worst deployments in the game, but I think because of some of the objectives, I can put the red player in a difficult position. People like to gravitate towards things like recover the supplies or whatever. And when I was looking at Hemmed In, because I would always pass on this one. I always ignore this one. But I'm like, wait, if I'm blue player, I've got all these corner areas where there's no deployment zone. And I can totally totally either place condition, I can place obstacles, I can place moisture evaporators or whatever in the corners of the map where normally you can't. Red player certainly can't. And I can place things in places that are easy for me to cover. I've got 3 scout snipers with Scout 3, so I can definitely get people out to these edges to cover them, to interact with them, and all of that other stuff. But at the same time, red player now has to put stuff kind of farther away. Red player has, as far as the objectives, like as far as the deployment, I might appear to be surrounded, but as far as the actual objectives, this one gives me a lot of better options for where I want to place objectives and conditions and things like that. So I feel like that can work with some of these objectives. So I'm going to try out Hemmed In. And again, if you've run Hemmed In a couple of times and you don't want to use that, feel free to swap it out. For the conditions, I'm going to go with my trusty supply drop. It's always good. It is also good to potentially put some out in the open to lure your opponent. I have had some people try that with me lately, and it's always a fun one. I'm going to go with hostile environment. That one definitely works into this one. If I can stop you from removing suppression, especially if I make you panic once. Now you don't get to remove that suppression anymore. Really, really fun. Kind of pile it on a little bit. War Weary is going to work. That's one of the reasons we put that upgrade on Krennic. We gave him the Inspiring Presence, because now at least he'll have a range 2 bubble, whereas your opponent will not. So that's a fantastic one. And for this one, I'm putting Fortified Positions on here. I imagine I'm going to be shooting into cover almost the whole time anyway. With all the suppression I'm putting out, I'm going to be shooting into cover like crazy. I've got some sharpshooter out there, but between the suppression and even light cover from trees or whatever, I think my opponent's going to end up having heavy cover the whole time anyhow. And so Fortified Positions does two things for me. It makes sure that I also have heavy cover, but it also makes sure that I can kind of place barricades to make a more difficult approach in case I do find myself going up against, some kind of, fleet troopers or Wookiees or people that want to move in really, really close and fast. I can slow down some of their movement by kind of walling off certain areas and making it a little bit more difficult, or slowing people down who are going to try to rush me. And so I feel like it does a couple of different things for this build. Although there is the one weakness that I'm going to go up against some Jedi that can throw barricades, and that's certainly something I'm willing to risk, because I would love for that to become more mainstream, and if I can help encourage more barricade tossing Jedi, then that would be wonderful. But that's going to do it for the build, guys. I want to hear what you guys think, though. Let me know down in the comments. Jump in our Discord. Let's discuss the game, builds like this, and what you think a little bit more. And that is going to do it. I will talk to you guys later. Hopefully you have a fantastic weekend. We got some really cool stuff coming up next week. Halloween is coming up. I will talk to you guys soon. Make sure you have a great time. Be safe. Be good to each other. May the Force be with you. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible. So thank you for your continued support. If you're interested in joining the team, there's Patreon links in the description below. I will talk to you guys later. Take it easy and goodbye there.